This is everything you should do before deleting your Minecraft world. Having a beacon is something you definitely do when you're in the late game, and so having a fully powered beacon is something you wait to do in the end game. But how do you get more end game than end game? Well, phase 4, I guess, which is technically building the diamond beacon. Now, I know there's been a lot of attention given to full netherite beacons, with things like Wadsy's achievement in that, but making one out of diamonds is not an easy task either. For one, you're able to farm the gold that you get for the netherite anyway, but with diamonds, there's no way to actually farm the raw diamond material. Your best bet's just building a giant tunnel bore like this and getting all the thousands of diamonds required to make one of these. It's a big project, good luck. Minecraft has a lot of mobs, and every passing update only brings in more. So to appreciate that, why don't you try to round up every mob in the game and build yourself your own zoo? And while you could do what Sandiction did and put them all in their own display case, it might also be fun to trap multiples of these in their own enclosure, giving you more of a habitat than an exhibit. Just make sure you also get a lot of name tags, because if you plan on doing this without them, you're gonna have to stay pretty close to all those mobs that you're bringing over. All it takes is getting a little bit too far, and poof, they're all gone. And while you're looking for the horses in that zoo habitat, why not go a step further and find every horse type before deleting your world? There's plenty of different breeds and colors to choose from, not to mention the special skeleton horse type that you can only get from skeleton horse traps. And then you can put them all together, breed them up if you like, and still be disappointed with how slow they go. Look, the point is the joy of finding them, not exactly the joy of using them. Dying in Minecraft isn't a lot of fun, but dying every possible way there is in Minecraft, that's a bit more enjoyable. See, not all deaths are created equal, and some of these can have some pretty wild death messages associated with them. Like this rare death message that says, "Skip the tutorial was killed by walking into a danger zone," which only occurs by a mob hitting you onto a magma block. I've never seen that, and I doubt that many of you have either. Really, it's worth going through the wiki and checking a few of these off. And we're not the only one who has to die a lot of deaths, since we could also go to the Minecraft stat page and see that there's a stat associated with killing every mob in the game. So if you're more in touch with your statistics side, then the statistics side will be able to help you do that. Because I'll say, I would have thought that I would have killed most of the mobs in my world anyway, and there's still a few stragglers that I tend to miss. And come on, there's no better way to put yourself on top of the food chain than to work your way Grim Reaper style through each of the mobs one by one. After dying in the void for the death message, why not try surviving it? Since crazy as that might sound, it's actually entirely possible to survive being on the void. Following in the footsteps of YouTuber I Go By Lots of Names, if you get yourself a whole bunch of enchanted golden apples and fly around Y level -64, it's possible to survive in the end void for over a month. It's not a pleasant month, but it's a month nonetheless. And really, if that sounds difficult, that's nothing compared to all the preparation that it takes to even be able to survive that month in the first place. And if you were already sick of your world before, after you finish this challenge, that might be all that you're willing to do left in Minecraft. Now, you've probably killed the Ender Dragon before you delete your world, but have you ever duplicated it? Since as crazy as that seems, it's entirely possible. Just ask Sandiction. Since if we use enough blocks to obscure the Ender Dragon's place above the perch, we're able to glitch it out so that it'll be stuck in place, completely breaking its AI. And then we push that dragon with flying machines so that it goes through one of the end gateway portals, and there you go, no more dragon. That is until you go through the portal and find that the dragon is over on the other side completely fine. And after enough time, the portal will also come back as well, letting us return and have a dragon, which is great, but it's still not duplicated. But sure enough, after pushing that dragon back into place, if we spawn another one, then we've got 2 dragons. I mean, hey, might as well break your world before you delete it. At least this is a more fun glitch to look at than just corrupting the world file entirely. Once you've played enough survival Minecraft, you probably already have a villager breeder. So you probably got a lot of villagers that look like this, but only this. So if you got the time, you should also try to search for the rare villager variants as well. Now this can happen by building a villager breeder inside of a swamp biome or a jungle biome, since normally those don't have their own villages, and unfortunately they don't, might I add. But once you spawn a new baby villager there, it'll grow up with the new cloak. So not only can you get these new 2 types of variants, but you could also get every job type of those variants. And now you got a whole peanut gallery of these peanuts for noses villagers. You can even spawn in a few extra just to see what it's like to kill them. I won't judge. What, if the cops come after you, you could just delete the world anyway. That's what you're gonna do regardless. Minecraft has a lot of rare things to obtain. And while you could technically say that the Ender Dragon egg is super rare because in Java you can only get one of them, that's boring. And really, the block that even less people have is this one, the silver grass block. Now you probably recognize it from Carves' recent video, but the way that you have to get this is that if you play in certain versions, when an Enderman Enderman was to grab a grass block that was covered in snow. Then on certain times when it picked it up, you would see that underneath that snow layer was actually a silver grass texture. And then you could wait for it to place it back down, and there you go, the rarest block in Minecraft. So if you got the time and the Enderman to try this out, it could be a really cool thing to show off to your friends. Because let's face it, through the help of raid farms and other things like that, a lot of the rarest items in the game become even less rare than a Happy Meal toy. So at least this one you gotta work for. Rarest mobs, on the other hand, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. Now for starters, you're gonna want to get the brown variant of Panda. Those only have a 12.5% spawn rate, and it's not like pandas exactly spawn that much anyway, so it'll take some time to track down. And once you've got that and added it to your zoo, you can go start looking for the zombified piglin jockey. Now you would think that would be less difficult since chickens don't exactly spawn much in the nether anyway, but these only have a 5% chance of spawning. That's Harvard admission rates, folks, or in other words, very tough to get. But not tougher to get than these mobs that have a less than 1% chance of spawning. Like a naturally generated pink sheep, 0.164% chance. And yeah, you probably feel pretty bad about killing that for your bed now, huh? Well, let's be honest, that one's easy to lie about, because you could very simply just put a coat of paint on top of a regular sheep. You would lack dignity, but who's to say? Especially in single player. So really, the only true answer for finding the rarest passive mob in the game would be a blue axolotl, as these have a 0.08% chance of spawning. So better get started breeding, because there's really no chance of you finding these down in a lush cave. Minecraft has a lot of flowers, and most of the time you can't be asked to find all of them. I mean, it's rare for me to need this much dye regardless, but the flower itself, that's really not doing anything for me. But with the advent of 1.20, we now have these two new ancient flowers that we can be searching after as well. And at that point, if you're towards the end of your world, why not set up a whole bunch of flower pots and try to fill out this complete dex? It'll already take quite a bit of luck to track down the sniffer egg, so what you'll be signing up for here is a multi-part journey. But I think that's also kind of fun. It makes it so it's enjoyable to see a flower in your world, and not just annoying when you're trying to place blocks in a plains biome and you find out that you can't place a block over a flower. I'd rather make it into a hunt than a hurdle. And once you've got all of those flowers and their unique kinds of dyes, you can put that together with banner patterns and designs and make a bunch of unique items inside of your world. Not only can you make some really cool stuff, but you can also make some pretty rare stuff too. I mean, for the thing banner pattern, you need an enchanted golden apple to craft. That's not to mention that you need things like a mob head or finding the snout banner pattern to get those other ones too. The enchanted golden apple isn't the only hard one, and when you put all of those together, you can really make some amazing results. Just as long as you don't put them on a shield. They look hideous there. And when you're trying to make that skull banner pattern, I would say that you go one step further and not just try to track down the wither skull, but every mob head inside of the vanilla game. Now you don't have to track down all the ones that come from the wandering traders and vanilla tweaks. That would just be crazy. But even in the base game, while most of us would just opt for the dragon head or the wither skull head, once you get the channeling trident, you can use that on all of these other hostile mobs. And perhaps the most difficult would be tracking down the new piglin head that got added in 1.20. It'll take a while to do, I'm not gonna argue against that. But come on, the little ears flap. Ah? It's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. When you've played on a certain world for enough time, you're probably getting sick of it. But the truth is that you're really only getting sick of the small area that you've traveled. Let's face it, folks, a Minecraft world is 60 million by 60 million blocks. So if you've only explored enough area to put on a single map, I would venture that there's probably some other interesting areas for you to explore. Besides, if you're gonna boot up a new world, you could basically have enough room to do it and then some, multiple times over in your current world. Sure, it wouldn't be as exciting to track down the stronghold again, but really, how exciting is it ever to track down the stronghold? And for me, I think that would be much more interesting to be able to revisit your old world and see what you've done there. So before you go for the nuclear auction of blowing up the whole world, you could always try the safe solution of just doing a soft reset. Put all your items in a chest, walk off tens of thousands of blocks, and then start anew. After that, you can revisit your old world, and who knows, maybe even build upon it. I think that could be pretty exciting, at least on the first time that you try it. Most of us have fought off a raid, but we've rarely ever fought off the toughest raid. Yeah, folks, the bad omen effect doesn't just stop when you get to one, since if you were to track down and kill 2 of these captain pillagers, then that can stack up to the Bad Omen 2 effect. And for any village that you're unlucky enough to walk into, that'll give you 8 levels of raid spawn, at least on harder difficulties. And now it goes from a raid to an all-out war. So if you're feeling pretty good about your overpowered set of loot to defend yourself, why not put it to the test and use it to defend everyone else in the village? And for a real challenge, if you even let just one of those villagers die, that's on you. Go get the raid 2 effect again and start all over. Now you're talking about a real challenge. So to make it even more fun, fun, try finding every rare variant of every biome type. Like this, for example, probably just looks like a taiga biome to you, and in truth it is. But what's really happening here is that this is the old growth taiga biome, which in 1.20 is extremely rare, and you'll know as much if you try to go for the advancement of finding every biome. And to make it even tougher, try to find both the pine taiga and the spruce taiga variants of this as well. Then you're really pressing your luck and your sanity. The real rarest biome in Minecraft is one that you make yourself. And truly, I think if you were to take the time to make yourself up a custom biome in your own world, that could be an incredible project. Because let me be truthful, I'm not a fantastic builder. Far from it. But if you create one-to-ones with the different blocks that you're switching out, it can get a lot easier to make this up. Like if you want to make a radioactive biome in your world like Scavio did, then by switching out the grass blocks in a plains biome for stuff like dead coral blocks and basalt, you can really get the perfect look for that scorched earth that you're looking for. I mean, even taking after what Exumavoid did on Hermitcraft all those years ago, hollowing out all of the sand in a desert until eventually you're left with the wastelands biome. Even something as simple as that can look cool. And both of which are a time investment that I'm sure you'll find pays off. Let's be honest, fishing in Minecraft got a lot less interesting after 1.16 changed the treasure loot. But that's only because you're worried about the wrong catch. Since while sure you might not have as good a luck as finding things as mending books or anything like that anymore, at least through a regular fish farm setup, but what you really should be after is the rarest catch possible in the game. And what is it? Well, it's ink sacs, which I know doesn't sound that exciting, you can get those already, but specifically the number of ink sacs. Since in a single catch, you're able to cast out and get 10 ink sacs back at one time. And the chances of that happening are 1 in 1,000, making it the rarest thing that you can fish up in the game. And honestly, for that title, you would hope it'd be a little better, and I guess it does kind of take the wind out of your sails if you already have ink sacs in your inventory from trying this. You would barely even notice the 10 increase, but hey, it's one of the rarest things in the game. Might be a fun afternoon of fishing to search after. Finding a woodland mansion's already tough, but finding a woodland mansion with the obsidian room, now that's something to be proud of. And not for all the obsidian that you're gonna find, but specifically what's inside of that obsidian egg. Right at the heart of the obsidian, when you dig through, you're going to find a naturally generated diamond block. In fact, the only naturally generated diamond block in existence, which not only makes it one of the rarest things that you can find in the game, but also one of the more useful rare things in the game. Because let's be honest, I can get a lot more out of 9 diamonds than I ever could with 10 ink sacs. But I digress. Did you know that the tall grass and the large fern are some of the rarest items in the game? Yeah, I was confused too. I mean, we see these everywhere, so how in the world could they be rare? Well, the physical fern or grass by itself isn't, but the item is. Since if you go to break these, you can't get the tall variants. The only way to find them is inside of a village loot chest. And that means you have to track down a whole savannah village to only have a 45.9% chance of finding tall grass. And large ferns are even worse. There's an 18.6% chance of finding it in Taiga Village. Which I know we've talked about lower odds in the past, but in practice having to find villages, which already don't come in every biome anyway, I think you'll find this to be pretty tough. And at the very least, something to keep you busy. Just make sure you don't place them. They're not worthwhile that way. With the Trails and Tales update, we now have a whole bunch of armor trims to be searching after. 16 to be exact. And while some of those are easier to find than others, it's specifically the Silence armor trim that's going to be a hassle. Now, finding an ancient city, that's already going to take you some time, and a headache if you happen to spawn a warden. But to show how rare this one is, when my friend Rekrap went looking for it in one of his recent videos, he was able to get almost a stack of enchanted golden apples before even seeing this armor trim. It has a 0.65% chance of showing up in a chest, or in other words, near zero. Basically impossible, so once you find one of these, it's probably worth the 7 diamonds to duplicate it. By just flipping this switch, we're about to destroy thousands of blocks. And the reason for that is this perimeter making machine, better known in the community as a world eater. Now, TNT duplication's nothing new, but duplicating TNT on top of a flying machine that goes back and forth over an area can really start to see some results. And with a design like this one by Doc M, it doesn't take long to see some serious destruction happen. And honestly, my favorite part of this whole design might just be the ability to hop in this minecart and take credit for the destruction ourselves. Emerald ore is already a rare block, and most of us don't even get our emeralds this way. We just trade through them for villagers. But the deep slate emerald ore is even more rare. Now, I've seen people talk about how the deep slate coal ore is rare, and that's true. Coal ore is supposed to generate up into the top of the world, so seeing it down this deep, that's rare. But emerald ore is coded similarly, and it spawns in even less biomes than the coal ore. So to just find one of these deep slate emerald ore, you would have a 25 times higher chance of finding diamonds. And when you put it like that, it almost seems silly. And it definitely would be if you don't have a silk touch pick, so at least track down that enchantment before you try this. It'll be easier, trust me. Instead of a minecart track like this, try this instead. With the way that minecart's rails work, we can manipulate the physics in such a way so that when we get pushed by a piston, we actually end up going extremely fast on this line of rails. Sure, the end result does cost a lot of redstone, but when you see the kind of speeds that we're able to output here, I think that quickly makes it worth it. And plus, there's even different piston bolt designs designs that'll let us go upwards, diagonally, or even move mobs around as well. And that would be the reason why many technical Minecraft players use this as their go-to way to travel thousands of blocks in between their builds, especially when it works in the Nether. This farm can produce over 1 million items per hour, which is a ridiculous number to wrap your head around. But through the help of glitched portals and update suppression, it's possible to get enough hoglins spawning through to the overworld that we get over 1,500 double chests worth of cooked pork every single hour. And I'm hungry, but that should be enough to even feed me. And if we go over to the Nether side, you'll see that we have a row of glitched portals like this that make sure that every time that a hoglin spawns, it comes over to our overworld and gets cooked for our dining pleasure. But trust me, that makes it sound a lot simpler than it is to set up. By this point, we're all pretty familiar with the different structures in the game, and while they're iconic, they can also be a bit bland. So what if we were to take a page out of Trixie Blox' book and recreate these bland buildings as something a bit more upscale? And if you ask me, that comparison is definitely something to appreciate, even if building one of these takes a hefty amount of time. So while I can never imagine something like this user's desert temple ever existing in the vanilla-based game, it is nice to explore nonetheless. And whether you upgrade the village, a jungle temple, or even just the desert's well, I think it'll all go appreciated. Whenever you play Minecraft with friends, there's always that one person who has way too many dogs tamed. I mean, 1 or 2 is fine, but at this point it's starting to border on a problem. So in that case, I definitely wouldn't show them the kind of farms that we got cooking up here. Because thanks to the insane technical communities of Minecraft, we actually have a possible wild wolf farm in the game. And believe me folks, while this might sound simple, this is actually a huge undertaking to do. But when you see the kind of showcases that Sidecraft and Prototech show off, it really is impressive how many wolves you can get to spawn with one of these things. Only downside is it's going to be a lot tougher to pick out man's best friend when you got thousands of these coming through the machine. Instead of trading with piglins for infinite obsidian, we're going to use withers. Since with this wild design, we use a combination of trapped wither bosses and nether portals to essentially create infinite obsidian as much as we want. It's hard to notice while we're using it, but from the outside, the way that this works is that every time that we go through the portal, it generates a new set of obsidian for the withers to break. And as they shoot towards these snow golems that are trapped away so they never hit them, they'll only ever break the blocks that we generate by being AFK. So while this is obviously dangerous to set up, with not 1 but 2 withers that could ruin the whole thing, when this machine gives you 3,000 obsidian per hour, it's an investment that pays off. Building another portal is a pretty straightforward process, and usually the most we customize one of these is by making it with corners or without. But since Snapshot 13W37A, we've been able to play with those dimensions in more ways than one, and this might be my favorite example of that. See, in the community, there's been something of an unspoken competition to see who can make the best nether portal sword, and while they're all excellent in my eyes, I think this take with the electric guitar is particularly special, since on the overworld we've got the neck, and then the base of the guitar comes through on the other end. And I think that kind of multi-dimensional consistency is worth striving for. Mob farms are nothing new, but a passive mob farm, that's something special. But if we use something like World Eaters to get rid of all the other spawnable area in a place, then once we add in well-lit grass blocks into the middle of spawn, we guarantee that all peaceful mobs that are supposed to be spawning only spawn where we want them to be. And then we use a flying machine to push them over to the killing method and get ready for the next batch. And if you're wondering why we built it so low in the world, again, that's to increase the amount of spawn rates that we're gonna get, which is a hassle to build, but it's also just about the only reliable way that we're getting a constant automatic source of cows, pigs, sheep, and horses. So I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. You've seen Sandiction trap the Ender Dragon, but here's how you do it yourself. After building up scaffolding the correct height of y equals 145, all we need to do is bridge over to the coordinates 0, 0, and then add in obsidian and water source blocks. And then from there, as this user shows, when the Ender Dragon tries to perch back, it gets stuck in our water trap, and it's completely there for us to kill, or to keep on display if you want to get 60 million views on your YouTube video. I mean, I could think of worse things to use the dragon for. With a few snow layers placed just right, we're able to trap a gas fireball and actually use it for our own functioning gassed cannon. Now, obviously setting one of these up is going to be pretty dangerous, but as soon as you get a gas trapped, then we just need to have it shoot its fireball into the middle of snow layers like this and a slab over top, and that'll keep the hitbox in place, and more importantly, it'll let us stand inside without taking damage. And from there, all we have to do is punch, and we have the full capability to launch these wherever we so please. Oh, and if you want to make this cannon even faster, just add in more ghasts. Though I'd be remiss if I didn't recommend having this minecart with an activator rail to get you on top, because after all, we're working with some pretty powerful explosives here. We don't want to take any risks in how you mount it. Watch closely, because if you blink, you might miss this one, since by using a Ravager setup like this, we're able to launch ourselves over 1,000 blocks just like that. After building this user design, the steps are pretty simple. We move into the pressure plate while holding the block key, making sure that the fence gate locks us in place, and then after we block enough time so that the Ravager gets stunned, which you can tell by its head shaking around, then we quickly click this minecart, keep blocking, and then wait for it to hit us again, until just like that, we're shot hundreds of blocks away from where we started. Just make sure you have a safe place to land when you get to the other end. After all, you wouldn't want to die 1,000 blocks away from where where you're supposed to be. When you're building in Minecraft, it's worth considering your perspective, but sometimes our render distance can get in the way of those dreams. And that's why it might be disappointing to look down from your airship and see nothing but fog on a sea of blue. So to fix that, our answer might come down to these maps instead. See, by filling out a handful of these from the chunks below, we can lay them out in an item frame and get an impressive window effect for our floors. And then, if you want less of a parallax scroll, just move a bigger gap between the glass window and the map floor, which for such a straightforward concept, really has a great execution. Okay, we're all familiar with this guy, the infamous dirt house. And while it's functional, it's not exactly a looker, and definitely not worth living in after the first night. But what if you're not ready to move on just yet? Well, this big brother might just be the solution. Sure enough, there have been plenty of variants added in just on top of the standard dirt block. And with those, we have a palette to turn this dirt hut into the Chateau de Terre. And really, if you're living in something as swanky as this, it's probably hard to call yourself a noob anymore. Though I wouldn't bank on this for a good safe house, cause obvious reasons. Here's how to kill the Ender Dragon with just one arrow. By using this design, affectionately called the rail cannon, we use a combination of a power 5 bow plus explosions to supercharge the amount of damage that we're about to do. And then, once the dragon spawns in, it'll instantly be killed once it respawns. Because folks, this one arrow is capable of dealing 1200 points of damage. And while that's a lot to take in, when you see this thing in action, it really does speak for itself. And here's how to survive it. Since even though it's true that this design by Fallen Breath can kill the Ender Dragon in one shot, if we equip ourselves with Projectile Protection 4 Netherite Armor, a Potion of the Turtle Master, and an Enchanted Golden Apple, then it's also true that we can survive a hit from this thing. And we did it all without a totem, which to me seems a bit more impressive. But it's also true that the impossible part of this skill is getting all the materials necessary to do it. Killing the Withers an achievement, and killing 4,500 of them in the next hour is going to be an even bigger one. Since with this user design, we have a fully operational semi-automatic Wither Killer / Nether Star farm. And sure enough, by placing down a row of soul sand like this and using pistons to set it up, all we need are some dispensers to spawn our withers underneath the bedrock, and then, with enough entity cramming, their health bars start to drop rapidly, getting us the kind of Nether Star results that we want. And at this point, the bigger problem's gonna be finding a way to get that many wither skulls to actually function this farm. But hey, there are other efficient farms for that as well. If you don't like waiting around, then getting bone meal is a huge help for your farms. If you're willing to roll the dice, then you can actually get a fully operational bone meal farm from fish drops. As it turns out, salmon, cod, tropical fish, and puffer fish all have a 5% chance of dropping bone meal on death, which is not a high yield by any means, and it's definitely not going to be performing at the levels of some of the other farms we can build for bone meal. But if you want to kill two birds with one stone and get a fish farm and a bone meal farm up and running, this is a way to do it. The answer for all the weird blocks that you're about to see comes down to something called update suppression, which is when we have so many updates happening at once that it overloads the game that it can't update certain blocks like they're supposed to. And the way that we do that here is by having so many rails powered at once, and then the game forgets what it's supposed to update, and we get things like a half a wooden door, a half a bed, or some stuff that's even weirder. And while there are so many cool results that you can get out of this, I'd only recommend trying it using Carpet Mod's update suppression crash fix, because otherwise you might just lose your world to a loop where it constantly crashes over and over. And something tells me that no matter how cool these things are, that just isn't worth it. You ever need bowls? I don't either, but if you want a bowl farm, then you can actually make them by using turtles. Unfortunately, the process is kind of gruesome, so if you don't want to see turtles getting massacred, you might want to leave this out of your world. The way that this works is that the turtle mob, when struck by lightning, will drop a bolt. It's completely impractical, but it's more so a possible in theory kind of thing. I suppose for any sick evil genius who wants to turn this into more of a reality, the lightning rods in 1.17 will help out with that. But really, I never thought it was that much of a problem to put 3 planks in a crafting grid. And to be completely honest, I'm more comfortable drinking my mushroom stew out of one of these bowls than anything that has to do with a turtle's insides. When you're first getting settled in Minecraft survival, a crop farm is always a good call. And if you spawn by a village, you've already got that covered. But what if we just can't leave well enough alone? Well, we probably get something like this. Following what this user did, it's possible, if you're crazy, to make a full-out crop field biome in your world. And while irrigation alone would be a grueling task, it's definitely a sight to see. Just make sure to stash up on some diamond hose before you try this, because the amount of durability required to till that much soil might just make your head spin. And the sad part is that this micro farm probably still has a better return on profits anyway. I trapped 70 wardens in this one area, and the reason is that with all these wardens, no other hostile mobs are going to spawn around us. See, the hostile spawning in Minecraft works off something called a mob cap, which is that after a certain amount of hostile mobs are spawned, the game isn't going to spawn anymore, which means that if we get ourselves enough wardens and then use a note block so that they don't despawn, then we're technically still safe, but nowhere else in the server are more hostile mobs going to spawn. And after you build this, I'd recommend placing a chunk loader and getting immediately out of there, because having 70 wardens in one spot is going to mean 70 mobs that are trying to give you the darkness effect, which if you ask me is 70 too many. If you've ever built a mob farm, or any automatic farm for that matter, matter, you know plenty well that you have loads of items to worry about soon enough. And while hoppers offer a solid solution to that, they are a bit boring, and definitely not visual. So why not add in a bit of fun between our farm and our chests? Like this honey wall, where the different item drops fall down like rain through the sticky surface. I mean, it's not the most functional, but that extra time might help to cut back on bottlenecking. And plus, it just looks really nice as a testament to your hard work. And if you ask me, that's worth something. Falling into a ravine is a pretty rational fear. I mean, all it takes is one drop and your legs are sure to give out. And while one water bucket could offer a fix, what if we use a whole slew of them? Well, the result would probably look something like this. Here, we take after this user and make something of a solid river connecting through the crevice. And then, not only is it a lot safer for us, but it also looks quite nice. And moreover, it makes logical sense too, since water tends to carve patterns like this anyway. So if you're looking for a bit more world building to build in your world, this is on top of the to-do list. Slime farms are nothing new, but making a slime farm that doesn't rely on slime chunks, but instead the swamp stone spawning mechanics, that's a whole other achievement. And as you see from this design, this is now possible only because of the 1.18 spawning changes that prevent certain mobs from spawning if there's a light level above 0. But because mushrooms emit a light level of 1, we can use that to spawn proof an entire area so that only slimes spawn. And then as soon as we go up to this platform way up in the sky, you'll see that sure enough, the slimes are spawning down there. You just might need to increase your render distance to actually be able to see it. But once you've made all the leads and redstone machines you can dream of, it begs the question, what's next? And while that might seem daunting, this might be a worthy use for your chest of slime snot. See, we're all familiar with the concept of a bouncy castle, so why don't we follow that blueprint in game? And folks, I'm talking the whole 9 yards. A full castle exterior, sticky piston bounce pads, everything to make this place into the hotspot for hopping. And hey, if you've got a Riptide Trident, then it only takes one rainstorm to make that bounce pad even better. Everyone loves receiving gifts, so if you're looking to recreate that feeling of Christmas morning 1,000 times over, then you can actually do that by building a fully functional cat gift farm. The way this works is that every time that the player sleeps, the cats will bring gifts to them, whether that's a rabbit's foot, a rabbit hide, string, rotten flesh, feather, raw chicken, phantom membrane, all of these different items. And while I'm not sure how useful most of these are, I'm also not one to deny a present. So if you're looking to just sleep around all day and leave the foraging to your feline friend, this is definitely the way to make it happen. Melon farms are nothing new to Minecraft, and there's plenty of different designs out there that exist to get you all the kind of melon slices that you need. But that's the thing, they get you melon slices. What if instead you wanted the full melon block instead of having to craft them? Well, if it's really that much of a big deal to you, then you can actually make a melon block farm using endermans. Sure enough, by taking a melon farm and an enderman farm and putting the two together, you can actually have the enderman pick up the block and then kill them to get the drop. And that might be why we don't see a lot of these pop up in different servers. Traps are a tale as old as Minecraft itself, but while there are plenty of flashy ways to imprison or blow up your pals, this might be the best way to hold them accountable, since with the dripstone spikes, we can make something of a functional guillotine for our use in our Minecraft worlds. Sure enough, you tuck the culprit underneath the trap door and have a system to let the spike fall far enough, and then you can have quite the public display. So while I wouldn't recommend it for any kind of quick attack, this might be a way to keep those hackers in line, just as long as they're not wearing a helmet. As many players know, there's plenty of other better ways to get emeralds than just mining around in a mountain biome. And while most of the time we would use villagers and raids for this sort of thing, that's not the only option, because as it turns out, we actually can get quite a bit of help from our fox and friends. You see, for some reason, foxes have a 5% chance of spawning with an emerald. And while I personally haven't seen a large-scale farm built for this, I imagine it will work some way similar to a wolf farm. Heck, you can even sort of see that in the way that RaiseWorks built one for the Protosky series. I mean, don't get it twisted, it's not a fast method, and I'd much rather use trading for my emeralds. But if for whatever reason you want to switch from human labor to an animal workforce, this is your only option. Here's why you should be using armor stands in your item sorter, because with this design by Ilmango, we use dispensers and armor stands to figure out very specifically which items are stackable and which ones aren't. So while a normal item sorter wouldn't be able to tell the difference between armor versus a sword, this one can. And if you're playing in 1.19, this design got pushed even further through the addition of allays, which does a lot to keep our chests from just ending up in a miscellaneous, not sorted pile. And for that, I'm thankful. If you've ever watched a professional builder, you'll hear the term block palettes come up a bunch. And while they're useful to guide your project, here, the block palette is our project. And by taking the time as others have to lay out a comprehensive gradient of blocks, we can get something pretty special to explore. And honestly, taking the time to study one of these layouts is a verifiable crash course for any building hopefuls. So whether you want to lay this out as a reference point or make the pattern into a build itself, it's an experiment worth trying in both cases. Every now and then, the Minecraft community goes through a phase where everyone all builds the same thing. And I'll say, my favorite era of that might just have to be the mini biomes you could see on the subreddit. Because through creative use of detailed blocks like stairs and slabs, it's possible to create a scale model version of biomes that we'd usually explore. I think there's enough in the base game to make a convincing diorama. Like this user who uses slime block item on the ground is a tiny version of the slime mob. That's just too perfect. Why did we make our bee farm in the nether? Well, strange as it might be, by having these little helpers buzzing around in the nether, there's no day-night cycle, so they just work constantly. And then if we add in a chunk loader like this one, where every so often it sends an item through the portal so that the chunks don't unload, then we make sure that those bees legitimately work non-stop all the time, regardless of where we are in our world. And that'll be the best way to get all the honey blocks necessary for when you're building this kind of crazy redstone vault door. Instead of trading with your villagers in the overworld, you should trade with them in the end, for the simple reason that if you get a villager set up like this, and then use the end teleporter gateways, we're able to easily keep trading with the same villager without it ever timing out. And the best part about this user design is that we don't actually have to break bedrock to do this. But rather, we just flip the trap door, activate the water source, and then trade with the villager as we're getting teleported between the two different spots. That alone makes it completely possible to keep trading with this villager as many times as we want, since it bugs it out and it'll never have to restock. So while it might take some time to set this all up, this definitely could be a design that saves you time in the future. This is a flying machine, and this is a flying submarine. Since by using the same technology, user Dylan D was able to make this very realistic submarine that can cruise through the water with no issues. And while that alone is wild enough to experience, what really sells this to me is the little details. Like the fact that we're able to hop inside these minecarts for a quick little ride, or if we place TNT up on top of these blocks, they'll get pushed up with the soul sand bubble streams and explode any ships that are above us. Bombs away. Why do we place all these trapdoors on the skulk blocks? Well, while it seems strange at first, what we're actually able to do here is control the way that skulk flows through the blocks. And you'll see that if we kill a mob on top of this skulk catalyst. Since this points out, having trapdoors flipped a certain way gives us a two-way street on how our skulk charges flow, which is not only pretty, but it could be helpful to redirect your skulk from a mob farm into a cobblestone generator so that you make sure that you make the skulk blocks where you actually want them. Now, scale models are clearly nothing new to Minecraft, but while we usually make our replicas smaller than the original, what if we went the other way and scaled it up? And as you can see from this set of builds, we did just that. By taking our 1x1 blocks and turning them into 3x3s, 9x9s, and so forth, the results can quickly get ridiculous. Meaning if you've got the time and you're crazy enough, then maybe a set of scaling structures like this might just be up your alley. Now, I think every kid with a dream has tried to make one of these at some point. And while the Aether Portal is an iconic sight, unfortunately, it's only possible with the mod in question. At least, it was until this glitch. See, in Bedrock Edition, it's possible to glitch out waterlogged stairs like so to leave floating blocks of water in the air, at which point we make our glowstone frame and get ourselves a legitimate looking Aether Portal replica. If you want to have an overabundance of leads, then it is totally possible to make it out of infinite string and slime ball farms. But when you do that, you run into the pesky problem of crafting. So if you're not looking to lay out all those ingredients in a crafting grid, then this can save you a step. The concept of this is fairly simple. We build a large spawning platform for wanting villagers to come into play. Then we put a bell in the middle that they make their way towards. And as soon as they're there, you kill them off and their llamas, and then you're able to get free leads for you. Granted, this process does make you into somewhat of a genocidal maniac, but if you really want to save the time on crafting, then it's the price you gotta pay. And as long as the authorities don't know, then we'll just keep it our little secret. And before you finally delete your Minecraft world, we might as well do it in-game before you get rid of the physical file. And by that I mean lining your entire base with TNT and getting ready for the fireworks show of a lifetime. I mean, I would recommend keeping a backup so that you can revisit this down the road, but it's also definitely fun to have one copy of these at least go up in smoke. And for all the creeper holes that you've had to fill in to get to this point, it's nice to go from accidental small explosions here and there to one big one to finally round off the whole project. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?